All right, again, welcome everybody. This is CC Risa's Summer EdTech Training Series number 1. This is tips and tricks for efficiency and organization within G Suite. I'm Allison Rogers. This is the link to follow along if you want to access the slide deck, and we're going to get going. So what we're going to be covering today are kind of 3 focal areas specifically within G Suite. So we're going to talk about Google Drive, basically how to make your life easier utilizing some tips and tricks I'll show you. I'm going to demonstrate and showcase some Chrome extensions that will hopefully impact your efficiency. And then we're going to talk about Google Calendar, some additional tips and tricks and just ways to make things a little bit more organized for you. So we are going to start with Google Drive, tips and tricks. So this first little trick, very simple, very easy. If you want to start a new doc, sheet, slide, form, or site, you just simply go to the Chrome browser and start typing in docs.new or sheets.new. So I will demonstrate this for you. I'm going to go to my URL and just simply type docs.new, and it automatically pops up a new Google Doc. Same thing if I were to do for slides and sheets and so on. So if you didn't want to go to Drive, you just wanted to quickly start a fresh, clean Google Doc, that's that. So the first one's pretty simple. This next one is called forcing a copy. And that is, let's say you are collaborating on a document or a slide, for example, and you want everyone to be able to make their own copy of it. And you don't want anyone to necessarily make editing or edit the original. And maybe you're concerned with everyone remembering that, like to not make edits to the original, or maybe you're concerned that not everyone knows how to make a copy. It forces them to make a copy without any question. There's no questions or concerns. They know they have to make a copy. So what you do is, if you, let's say I go to my untitled Google Doc, for example, and I'm going to go up to the URL and I'm going to scroll all the way over to the end, and it's going to say edit. Okay. If I get rid of that word edit and I replace it with the word copy, and then I copy that whole URL, now if I were to open this up in a new page, it will give me this notice. Would you like to make a copy? So what I could do now that I've changed the ending of that document from edit to copy, I can grab that URL and I could throw it in an email. I could link it in a Google Doc so that everyone knows that, okay, I want to make a copy of this document because I'm being forced to do so. So when I click that make a copy, it will make a really exciting version of my untitled document, but copy of untitled document. So now everyone has a copy that they now own of that original document without any confusion, and then they can go from there. So that's tip number 2. All right, let's jump to priority and workspaces. I think this came out about, gosh, a year or 2 ago now. The priority versus workspaces, it all lives in the same place, but within Google Drive, you may have noticed recently that instead of just having My Drive, up at the top you'll see this priority. And what that priority piece does is it lists kind of like the frequent flyers or the documents or slides, forms that you've been in most frequently or most recently. And so it's a nice little sort of shortcut. In addition, if you scroll down to Workspaces, I'll show you how to actually create, it's almost like a table of contents and allowing different documents to live in different folders. So let me just jump into the live site, or my Chrome to demonstrate some of these. So if I jump into my Google Drive, and so again, I've got My Drive here, and then I've got which gives me quick access to, right, things I've been recently in. But if I go to priority, it will list, and for some reason today my drive has been giving me issues, but normally it will reflect items that I'm most recently in or most frequently in. So if I were to click this little arrow, it would showcase and give me options to actually double click Again, I don't know why it's not showing me today, but normally I could just double click on it and open up the document. Under Workspaces, if I wanted to, let me first just explain what a workspace is. So essentially, you can see I've demonstrated this already. I've got little, like, I don't know, table of contents, if you will, for things that are similar documents, for example, but they live in different folders within my drive. So I don't know about you, but I have a lot of different work groups that I work with that all have different agendas. And sometimes having to access or find those agendas can be a bit time consuming. So instead of moving all of those agendas into one folder, which doesn't make sense because some of those work groups don't work together, I have created a workspace for agendas. So what that means is it's giving this a place to live without switching folders or switching the location. So it's ultimately creating a little shortcut for me. So what I do to create a workspace is I click the create button, and then I give it a title. So I'm just going to call this test workspace. And then I click create. And to start, it's going to say, okay, let's add some files. So I'm going to click add. And then from my drive, I can throw in whatever I want. So if this were my agenda workspace that I've already created, maybe I would search within my drive specific agendas, right? I could go to different folders within my drive. I'm just going to, for argument's sake, throw in random things. So I'm going to click insert. And now it has that added to my workspace. I could continue adding files. I can add as many as I'd like that make sense in that workspace. And we'll just throw in this one. Okay, so I click insert. So now I have 2 documents in this workspace. I click done. And if I scroll down to the bottom, since I have quite a few workspaces, you can now see my test workspace is right here. You'll notice that the workspaces order it in alphabetical order, so that's why it's down at the bottom. So let's say I wanted to alter this workspace in some way. I could click the little 3 dots as I hover over each item, and I can still access those same permissions as if I were in the actual document. But if I wanted to switch up the actual workspace, I could click the 3 dots next to the title, and I could rename it. I could hide the workspace, which doesn't delete it, just gets it out of my view, or I can actually remove it, which means I delete it. Deleting a workspace doesn't delete the content, it just deletes that essential table of contents, right? So it's not deleting the agendas that I've put in there, it's just saying I'm not gonna create this little bookmarking area for you anymore. So you could really go through and think, gosh, what are some of the frequent flyers that I use every day that would be nice instead of having to sift through. I mean, yes, you can use your starred folder and that's handy as well, but I like this because it groups things that make sense together, right? So things I daily use, I put here, or most frequently I've been using a workspace for TI4E, right? I've got, every day I'm in this session schedule draft and it's not easy to find within my drive, so I threw it in there. So this is just a quick and easy way to create sort of a shortcut table of contents without having to change where documents live within your folders. All right, so that's Workspaces. Next, we're going to talk about advanced commenting. So we can actually assign tasks within the commenting tool. So I'm going to jump into a random Google Doc and show you how this works. So if I were to be working on a document that is collaborative, so it's shared with other people, and I think many of you know how to actually make a comment. So if I wanted to like highlight a word, and I can either click here to comment or up here to comment. I click here and I can just start typing my sample comment, right? So to take this one step further, a lot of times in a collaborative document, you maybe have different tasks or things that you need to take care of versus your collaborators. And so maybe you've completed a task and now you want to notify them or let them know, hey, could you complete this? So instead of everyone having to go into the Google Doc every day and check, did anyone make any changes? This is a really nice tool to be able to enable, yep, I've done this, or hey, I'm ready for you to complete this task. So let's say I'm collaborating with someone and I type in my comment and I want them to complete this task, or whatever I'm going to say. I just start by putting the @ sign, and then I start typing in their name. And if they're in my contacts, they'll automatically populate, so I can select them. And so now it's saying that, do I want to assign this task to this person? So if I click the little box, it's saying the assigned person will be notified and responsible for marking is done. So when I click assign, it's actually going to send her an email saying, Allison has assigned this task to you. So instead of them having to go into their Google Doc every day and check, has Allison assigned me anything, or has anything been changed? It kind of creates that immediate notification within their email, so she knows to go in only when I've assigned this. And then once it's assigned, she can actually click resolve, or that is has been completed, or she can even resolve it and then add my task back to me. So you can have like a really collaborative Google Doc without having to wait and check to see what's been done, but actually using that as a notification piece. So I think this is a really helpful tool when you're collaborating on multiple different things, and you can just notify each other by email. All right, so I'm going to click cancel so she doesn't get that and think, what in the heck is she assigning me? Anyway, so that is how you use the advanced commenting tool. Next is version history, which again, you may or may not have been familiar about this, but just a little refresher here. I'm going to go into another random Google Doc, and this is how you might use this. So if I go to File and I go to Version History and I select See Version History, this allows me to go back in time and access previous versions of a document. So for example, if I were to go back to June when I made comments, I could look at this version, or I click this little caret to unpack it even further, and I can really drill into specific times what did I have changed, right? I can go back in time, and if this was a shared document, I could actually see like specific names of who did what, right? So if I click this little more actions button, it lets me name this version, or I can even make a copy if I want to go back in time and say, okay, I want to make a copy of just this part, not when I changed it at 11:42, but only when I changed it at 11:26 or whatever. You can go back in time and do that. What I often do is I will go back and view my previous versions. Maybe I like made changes. I'm like, what was I doing yesterday that I took out? I will go back and maybe just like highlight something, copy it, and then just go back and put it in my new version. So this is a great tool for not just collaborating, right? When you're like, okay, who made a change and who accidentally goofed it up, right? That's also helpful. But also, if you are individually looking or working on a document or a slide and you're like, gosh, I need to go back and figure out what the heck I changed. I wasn't doing that right, or I want to see an older version, make a copy, or maybe even restore it. So it's kind of that sort of saving grace of like, gosh, I made a change and now it's gone. Nope, it's not. You can always click this restore this version, and then it will restore the version that you're on, right? But don't be alarmed. If you go back and look at previous versions and you're actually like digging into these, as long as you don't click restore this version, it's not going to restore. You can always click the back button and it'll take you to your normal, like the version that you're working on right now. But I find it helpful to go back in time, pull out whatever it is that I need, and instead of clicking restore this version, copy it and then click back. So that is version history. So again, under File, Version History, See Version History. All right. A couple more things within Google Drive. Another Google Doc one, the Translate tool. So under your Tools tab, again, we'll go to that random Google Doc. So this would be helpful, for language teachers or maybe ESL students. You could go to whatever even specific sentence or paragraph or even the whole document and go to Tools. and then select, translate document, and it lets you actually select the language that you want to change it to. Click translate, and it will pop out in a different browser the translated version. Pretty cool. And I can always jump back to the tab, and it takes me to my original. So lots of cool tools within Google Docs that you won't know unless you explore it a little bit. Next is advanced sharing. And the reason I want to showcase this one is you may have noticed that Google's changed the look and feel of their sharing permissions lately. So if I were to go to that random doc and I'm going to click share, it doesn't look like it used to, right? You can still do the same things, it just now you can actually share like a whole group of people, one document, for example. But what I wanted to focus on was this ability to, even though you maybe have set up a doc or a sheet or whatever with specific permissions, like maybe anyone with link can view. I do that frequently with a lot of my training documents because I want anyone who has the link to be able to view and click on, whatever the content is. But let's say I have a reason to want anyone with a link to view, but also I want to lock it down a little bit. If I click this little gear icon, it lets me control a little bit more of what people can actually do. So right now, by default, it's saying editors can change permissions and share, and viewers and commenters can see the option to download, print, and copy. Okay, so let's say you're working with a sensitive document within Google Drive, and you've got a handful of people that are editors that can make changes to the document. But let's say you want to lock it down a step further and you don't want the editors to be able to just share it with anybody. So you can actually disable that editors can change permissions and share. So they can still make changes, but they can't just share it to whoever they want, right? And then this other piece is viewers and commenters can see the option to download, print, and copy. So if this would be more so like if I didn't want anyone to be able to do those last three things. So if I was, for some reason I had a presentation slide deck that I wanted everyone to be able to view, but I didn't want them to be able to download it as like a PDF or print it out or make a copy to like make it their own. If I unselected that, that would limit those last three options. So there's probably a purpose for each of these depending upon what you're working on. But I wanted to point out that A, that these options exist, and B, they now exist within this gear icon since the sharing look and feel within Drive has changed. All right. Next is advanced search bar. Yes. So within Drive, and for some reason this will give me trouble earlier today as well, but if you're looking high and low for a document, shared drive, my drive, shared with me, and you're just like, I cannot find this document. A nice tool is to not just type in the search bar what you're looking for, but this little caret drop down. Yeah, for some reason it's not loading, so I'm going to jump into my personal drive. That little caret drop down gives me the opportunity to look up things a little bit more specifically, so filtered down. So I can, look up like by file type. Like let's say I know it's a Google Doc. I don't know where it is, but I know it's a Google Doc, and I know that I own it. And and so you can dig into really specifically, like when was it modified, time frame. Maybe I don't know the exact name, but I know that it had the word drive in it or whatever. This is who it's shared with. You can go through and really lock down what you're searching for. Now, obviously, the more you filter, the less you're going to find in terms of results, but that might be helpful, right? If you've got a lot of documents that are similarly named, this advanced search feature might be what you're looking for. So again, that's just clicking the little caret in the search bar within Drive. All right. And the last tip I'm going to give you for, let's see, our Google Drive is inserting images, audios, and videos within slides. So I'm going to go to my TikTok Tuesday slide. So I'm sure everybody knows that you can embed those things within slides, but I'm going to show you the quickest way to do that. So if I click on Insert Image, it gives me a couple options. I can upload them from my computer, search them from the web. I mean, all those things listed, right? But what's nice is Google has integrated this, like, I don't know, searchable tool within its slides and docs and stuff. So if I click search the web, it's going to actually let me search right here a picture, and I can select it, insert it, right? So instead of having to like go outside of my slide deck, go to Google, I can insert it right there. The same thing applies for if I wanted to add a video, insert video, and I can actually like search within here, like it's embedding YouTube right here. So I can, you know, type in whatever it is that I'm looking for, or find one from my Google Drive, right? Select the video, and it will put that YouTube video right within my slide. So again, I don't have to leave my slide deck. I don't have to go to Google and search for something. I can do it all within that same place. All right, so that was my tips and tricks for Google Drive for today. Next, we're going to jump into some Chrome extensions for efficiency. So just a quick reminder of how you access Chrome extensions. Right, you go to the Chrome Web Store, which you can just Google Chrome Web Store. You can actually, there's a Chrome Web Store shortcut that I have linked here that will actually let you add an extension to your extension extensions within Chrome that lets you quickly go to the Chrome Web Store. So if I click this little, this is my extension here. All the extensions live up in this little bar. I click here, it takes me directly to the Chrome Web Store, and then I just type in whatever it is that whatever extension I'm looking for. I don't know what I'm looking for, but there's a random, and then I can click Add to Chrome, and then accept the permissions. If I already have it saved to or added to my Chrome, it will say rate it. So if you're wondering, you know, why doesn't mine say add to Chrome here? It's because it's already been added. All right, so that's how you add extensions, just as a refresher. And I'm going to show you a couple extensions that I think are helpful for whatever, like regardless of your position, right? They're specifically for efficiency. So the first is this Save to Drive, and you'll notice that throughout my slide deck, I have all of the extensions that I'm referring to. They're actually linked. So if you just click on the link, it will take you to the Chrome Web Store, and I already have it like saved for you. And you just have to click Add to Chrome. So if you're thinking, oh, she's going too fast, just go to the slide deck that I have, and you can find the links that way. So this Save to Drive allows you to like be on the web and save things really just directly to Drive in like one right click. So let's see, I think I had pictures of puppies up earlier. Yes. So let's say I want to save a picture of a puppy right from Google. As long as this extension has been enabled, I right-click the image, and you'll notice that I now have this Save to Google Drive option. If you don't have this extension enabled, you will not see this. So if I right-click Save to Google Drive, and then I want to save image to Google Drive, it's going to say, yep, it's shared it to Google Drive, it's untitled right now, and it's saved to this folder. I can change that, and I can rename it. So let's say I want to change the folder it lives in, or maybe I want to change the file formatting. I can click the destination folder. So I can put it wherever I want within my drive. But again, that was one right click that allows me to save it directly to my drive. So nice, quick, fast way to do that. All right. The next extension, Extensity. This is a tool that allows me to basically organize all of my extensions. As you can see, I kind of have an obnoxious amount of extensions within my Chrome browser, and I have a lot disabled at the moment too, but since I cover extensions a lot and I use them a lot, I have them living up here. But for the sake of making things a little bit more organized, if I were to enable this extension, it looks like this. And if I were to click the extension called Extensity, it now lists all of the extensions that I have enabled or even disabled. So the ones that are sort of faded, I do not have them enabled. But if I just, and then the ones that are lightened up, I have them enabled. So if I wanted to turn one off, I just simply click on it, and it is now not going to be in my bar of extensions anymore. But if I click it again, it's going to be added to my bar. I can even go so far as to click on like the little setting icon. The gear takes me to the settings of that particular extension. Right, and I can go from there. So this Extensity just allows you to quickly access all of those extensions, turn them on, turn them off without having to actually go to like your more tools and then go to extensions and then, you know, scroll through that way. It's just a fast way to turn them on and turn them off. All right. Next is the bit.ly URL shortener. This is by far one of the extensions I use the most on a daily basis. So if I were to go to my bit.ly extension here, it's this little symbol. And I've actually, once I enable it, I've actually, I think it'll ask me to like log in or log in with Google. I've actually created an account that allows me to not just make a URL shortened. And so instead of having that super lengthy, you know, HTTP / that whole thing, I can make it a little bit shorter and easier. So if I just wanted to shorten it, it by default gives me this little made up bit.ly link, which if I then copy that and throw it in a new tab, it's just going to take me right here, right? But if I wanted to go one step further, I could customize my link, right? So I could change this and make it personalized by a specific name. So for example, if you were to go up to the top here, I actually went in and made my bit.ly for this presentation a little bit more user-friendly. Now, you might go in and change the name instead of having random numbers for your bit.ly link, and you might find out that it's already been used, right? I even have done that to myself, like, oh, I've already used that one before. But you just have to find something that hasn't been used, and just note that it is case sensitive and there can't be any spaces. So again, I just click the bit.ly link or the bit.ly extension, and you can see that I've customized it here. Once I customize it, I click save and then I copy it. And now I can take that link and send it in an email, put it in a slide deck for you all, throw it in the chat box. So the bit.ly extension is definitely a massive, massive time saver. All right, let's see here. Where am I? bit.ly. Okay, so Mote. This is a cool new extension. So kind of going back to my commenting tool within Google Docs, once that is enabled, it kind of takes it one step further. So instead of just making it a comment, once that extension is enabled, you'll notice it's right here. And I can click that extension right here, and it will record my voice. So I can leave a voice comment. So this is a sample voice comment, and you'll find that it's relatively accurate, period. Click done. And it's going to say, okay, now I have a link that will allow me to, I can actually take that link and email it or share it with people to be able to have them access the voice comment. Or I can click comment, and it actually makes it a comment within the Google Doc. You can see that it's 8 seconds. I can play it. I can edit it, right? So let's say the transcript wasn't quite right. And then I say update, and now it's updated it. And so then I can have that interactive collaboration, right, where people can reply to the voice comment with a voice comment, or can just, hear the voice comment. So this was, again, a really powerful tool that allows you to not have to necessarily check in with the Google Doc. Like, you can actually take that link, throw it in an email, make it a little bit easier that way. And I can also always edit, delete it, or link to the comment. So I'm going to delete it. There we go. So that's Mote. Next is Mute tab. This one's nice if you are like me, as you can see, and you have like a million tabs open at once. Let's say you've got a tab that is running a lot in the background, or maybe it's a video that's running in the background, and you're like, okay, I can't have this on right now. So for example, let's say I have a Tech Tip Tuesday video playing. If I have that playing and I want it silenced essentially, or muted, click the extension, and now you can see the little line through my tab, and it's saying, like, it's still playing, but you don't have to hear it. And if I click it again, it turns it back on. So that's all it is, mute tab. And you can do that for any tab that you want. All right, the last extension I'm going to reference is the Grammarly extension. This one is really helpful because it works within like Docs, but also within the web. So for example, I think I saw it working here. Yeah. Let's say I started writing something. I can see it already. It won't even like let me make a mistake. I can click here. Oh, it's actually spelled correctly right now. It's working too well. There we go. So it'll underline it and it'll give me some options. So, just like a regular spell check, but it also will check my grammar. And so it'll just give you the little underlined button, and you can see that it's working in the bottom. And I think you could even see when I made a comment. Yeah, so I had both these extensions running, so it would have corrected my comment, grammar, and spelling too. So anytime you see that little graphic in whatever you're in on the web, it's working in the background. So you just have to enable it, and you will notice it will work within lots of different programs. So that's a nice spelling grammar check tool. All right, that's it for extensions. Now we're going to jump into our last portion, which is improving organization with Google Calendar. So I'm going to give you a couple tips and tricks here. Some you might be familiar with, but maybe going one step further, you'll notice a couple things that maybe you didn't realize it could do. So the first is sharing the calendar with specific people. I would imagine that many of you have already shared your calendar with folks, but just wanted to remind you of the specifics of how you can individualize what you share. So if I jump to my calendar and I go to under my calendars and I click the little three dots and I say settings and sharing, and I go down to share with specific people, you can see who I've shared my calendar with and how. So you can see, like, colleagues can see if I'm free or busy. If I wanted to add someone, I click add people and I start typing in their name. And under permissions, I can select what I want them to be able to do. So just a reminder, see only free busy allows them to see, like, oh, she has a blocked out time between 12 and 1, so she has something going on. See all event details, they would be able to see, oh, from 12 to 1, she has her summer ed tech training series. Make changes to the event would be if you had like a collaborative calendar, right, where you want multiple people or more than one person to be able to make changes to events. And then make changes and manage sharing would be if you maybe are a co-teacher or you've got a calendar where 2 people need to be on it, then you want them to be able to access everything. So this last one is, I would say, probably least used for me, but what I have done, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. First of all, whatever I select and then I click send, it'll send her an email. But what I have done, you'll notice this is my personal Gmail, and I've allowed my personal Gmail to be able to make changes to the event. So to events. So the reason I did that is, I've got my work calendar with my work stuff and my personal calendar with my personal stuff. But sometimes it's nice to be able to say, if I'm scheduling, something like maybe later in the evening work-wise, and I would say, oh, maybe I have a doctor's appointment or something, I can turn on my personal calendar and see like, oh, did I have an appointment? And so that way, like even if I'm in my personal calendar, I can do the same thing. I can see in my work calendar, oh, I have this event going on. So it allows that sort of seamless, like I don't have to log into this one and log into that one. And I still have my personal and work separate, but it allows the visibility to work seamlessly, right? So I could, have my work calendar turned on, and then I can also turn on my personal calendar, and so then I could see that overlaying and make changes wherever I need. So that would be one kind of tip that I would say, as to maybe instead of having to remember what account you're in or have to, jump and log in to do different accounts, that way it's like a little bit more seamless. That's just a personal way that I find it helpful. All right, next is adding more options to your events. So I think we've all created events, but digging a little bit further into what you can actually do, I just want to make sure everyone's aware of all of the features within a Google event, because there's lots. And I feel like they add stuff every day, especially with our remote teaching and learning situation. So if I go to my calendar and let's say I'm going to create an event, so I click anywhere, it's going to allow me to title my event. And I can, pick a time, all that. I can add guests. So let's say maybe I want to invite guests. And then it's going to let me add video conferencing, so I can add a Google Meet or a Zoom. I can even integrate Google Maps. So this is really nice if you have like someone coming from outside your county. You can actually throw in the link to the Google map, like the actual location, and when you send this invite, it's going to actually integrate the map, so they could click on it, it'll take them to Google Maps. I can add a description here, and then if I click more options, it's going to take me even one step further, where I can scroll down here and I can add a description, or I can add an attachment. I don't know why my images are like this, but for some reason they are. I can click add attachment, and then I can embed various files, right? I can even pull directly from my drive. This is really helpful, and I think is a really just sort of seamless way to create maybe a meeting invite, is to always attach the agenda, whatever pertinent documents you might have. So I could grab whatever it is that I'm wanting to add, click select, and so then when I send this event, what's going to happen is it's going to, show the time, show the Google Map integration, add the video conferencing if I've added that, all those details. It's going to show the agenda or whatever I've attached, and then so all of those pieces are going to be all in one place. So instead of having to go to Drive to find the agenda, or go to Maps to find the location, or go to Meet to figure out, where, it's all now in that one place, in that one event in your calendar, and now in their calendar. So when I click save, it's going to say, do you want to send the invite? And so whoever has been invited will now receive all of those details about that one event. So it really is a time saver. Maybe up front you've got to add those details, but for your participants, it is extremely helpful to have those things integrated. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get rid of my test event. Okay, let me jump into my next tip, which I think is related. Yes, find a time. Okay, so let's say you're trying to figure out a time to meet with a colleague, and you don't want to send out a doodle, because then, just is unnecessary, especially if it's one person. But you want to find a time, and you want to offer that up and kind of have some semblance of an idea of like, what, based on their calendar, I think this will work. So if I go to my test event here, and instead of my event details, if I go to find a time, as long as I have somebody invited to the event, it's going to then access their calendar as long as it is shared with me, right? So I could go through and say, okay, so on this date, do we have any potential conflicts, right? So it looks like maybe 2 o'clock is no good, or maybe that's actually an event that I'm starting to create right now, but you would see blocked out time if it didn't work for her or if it didn't work for me. So I could be very intentional with which time I then select, because I've already checked their calendar without having to like get out of this event and look at their calendar and look at my calendar. It integrates it all in one. And then I can say, okay, yep, I like, noon, that sounds good, or 2 o'clock works. So then I go back to the event details and, make sure my time is there, and I click save. So all I've done here is created an event, go to more options, click on find a time. And as you can see, this event doesn't have anybody added, but if I added a guest, then it would integrate both of their schedules, or you could actually just, specify whichever guest you want that has been invited to match to make sure that that time works. So that is find a time. All right, and nearing the end here, we've got, oh, this one is huge. This is a newer update, more options with Gmail event RSVP. Okay, so let's say I sent that event out and it didn't quite work for someone. So instead of just saying no, right? I always feel bad like declining events without giving any reason, like, no, because I have, a conflicting meeting or whatever. So if I were to receive an event invite, it would look something like this. And now Google has integrated this option, this more options. So instead of just saying yes, maybe, or no, I can click more options. And I have 2 options to select from, which are really slick in my opinion. So first is I can propose a new time. So maybe, I just need to push it back by half hour. I can click propose a new time. It's going to open up in Calendar and allow me to suggest a different time. So you can see that it's looking at both of our calendars now, and it's going to say, okay, like maybe I want to select a different time frame. I can, pick whatever it is that I want and click send proposal, and it will email them the new proposal, and then it will allow them to accept it or decline it. So it's all without having to go into Gmail and like send an email and have this exchange back and forth. You just send a proposal, right? Another option is under more options, add note. So like I said before, if I didn't want to just say, no, I can't come, I could add note, and it's going to pop up this little box that gives me the option to, right, say, prior engagement, or whatever it is. And then I can also add my RSVP from there, right? So instead of just saying no and not giving a reason, or, that's fine, but you can add a little bit more, or like, can we move it a half hour because, and then you click send and it sends their RSVP and the note to the event creator. So again, another cool way to integrate things without having to leave Calendar. Let's see, a couple more actions, duplicate, copy to. So if I'm in my calendar and I want to maybe add this event to something else, I could go into the event, click the little 3 dots, and I could duplicate it, and it will create this same event but on another date or time that I select, or I can copy it to another calendar. So I do this a lot when I have trainings that are on my calendar, but that maybe also need to be on our instructional services calendar. So I would say, click the 3 dots and just say copy to instructional services. And then when I go into that calendar, it will have this exact event living in that calendar. So quick little tip for that. And Google Calendar Advanced Search, I'm always a fan of finding things faster, quicker, easier. And if I were to go to the search bar right here, click search, and I can type in a keyword, or I can click this little drop down arrow and I can select really specifically. So maybe I cannot find an event, maybe it's from the past, but I know the keyword to select or who participated. Similarly to within Drive, I can set up all of those filters and search events within Calendar. So very similar to the Google Drive one. All right, and the last one. Oh, sorry, second last one. This one's fun. So if I go to my calendar and I go to, let's say, I want to add different holidays or maybe sporting events. If I go to other calendar, I click the little plus sign, and I can say browse calendars of interest, and it will take me to different holidays, sports, or other. So I can even I could go in and search, NCAA football schedule, and so I could add that to my calendar. Or maybe I want phases of the moon, right? I can add that to my calendar. So it's, instead of having to go through and select, input manually all of the holidays that you want or all of the sporting events that you want, check out the calendars of interest within Google Calendar. Okay, and then the last one I have, this one's kind of fun. And super simple. So let's say you want to put something in that's in 6 months from now, and you don't want to go to your calendar and have to click, click, click to get to that month or that date. If you just simply, in your calendar, if you click G, go to date, and you can type in whatever that is. Let's say it's a year from now, and click go. Boom, takes you right there. And then you can just click on today to take you back. Yeah, so that is my last Google Calendar tip and trick. So I think that covers all of my tricks and tips for Drive, extensions, and Calendar. And just a couple things before we jump to the chat box. We've got a couple more trainings or series coming up, so make sure you take a look at that. Next week is Digital Citizenship for Remote Educational Environment on the 15th. And two other topics or PD events I want to mention is 517 EdTech has their another Lunch and Learn. We had one in, I believe, May. We're gonna have another one on the 5th of August at 11:30. So if you click there to RSVP, and then of course the 2020 Virtual TI4A Conference, August 11th. Be sure to register for that. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording, and I'm gonna jump to the chat box.